Hello friends. Today we are going to discuss about 25 tips for cognitive behavioral therapy practitioners or also therapists. I am Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry working at NIMANS, Bangalore. Before I start my presentation, I would like to place this disclaimer. This presentation is for academic and training purpose only, not for clinical opinion. For clinical opinion, please do contact a psychiatrist. For legal opinion, please do contact an advocate. Conflict of interest? None. In this video, I'm going to give you 25 tips for cognitive behavioral therapy practitioners. These are very essential to be a successful therapist. And if you are already doing a therapy, and these 25 tips will sharpen your skills. And the target audience: psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, mental health professionals, psychotherapists, and counselors. First tip: rapport building. Although we are discussing about cognitive behavioral therapy, without having a good rapport, the client will not reveal in his innermost thoughts, which are cognitive distortions, automatic negative thoughts, and core beliefs. These are the thoughts he needs to reveal to you to work and restructure his cognitive dysfunction. To reveal these innermost thoughts, a good rapport is essential. Without this, you will not be able to progress in CBT. And rapport helps in collaborative work and also in Socratic questioning. In CBT, rapport is very, very essential. Tip number 2: goal setting. When you start your therapy, you need to have a goal setting. Without that, the therapy is aimless. The goal setting is essential, and whenever you ask for goal setting, usually the client will say, I want to be successful. And if you ask, what should be your goal for this therapy? I want to be happy. I want to overcome depression. I want to overcome anxiety. These are the general statements the clients will use. Now, you have to take these general statements and you need to ask specific questions, because general statement, it is very difficult to assess, monitor, and to see the outcome. Hence, specific questions should be asked. For example, if the patient says, I want to be happy for the therapy goal setting, and you need to ask, okay, very good. The first step is you need to be happy. To be happy, what you should do now? What should be your first goal? That is to overcome your depression. The next step, to overcome depression, what are the things you need to do? So that means you have to have a specific measurable goal settings. And you may have short-term goal setting and long-term goal settings. These goal settings becomes very essential in CBT. The third important tip, agenda setting. Here in CBT, every session should be structured. But however, you need to be flexible depending upon the client's need. If the client comes in a crisis, you need to stop this agenda setting and you need to discuss about the crisis. But however, when you do intake session, you need to sensitize. Invariably, agenda setting is very essential to have a good cognitive behavioral therapy outcome and also a meaningful session. And you have to explain them. In each session, we will be reviewing the past session and we will be reviewing the homework assignments, review the diary, that is thought diary, and in the week, what are the thoughts, events, feelings has happened, which are very, very essential to be discussed, feedback and summarizing. This is how each session should be structured. But however, please remember, you need to be flexible also. The fourth, the clients need to know about the connection between the stakeholders. Here the stakeholders are thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and physical sensations. You need to establish this connection so that the client understands what are the role of these thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and sensation. You need to give example. One example I can give you is there is an event that my boss yelled at me. And immediately I had an emotion of angry and sadness. Angry because how can he yell at me in front of everyone? And at the same time, I later realized I can't do anything against him, so I became sad. But the issue here is event triggered an emotion, but we forget the interpretation of an event. Here the interpretation of the event is, I am not good at it, or else the boss believes I'm not good, I'm useless, I'm stupid. So these interpretation of an event leads to the feeling that needs to be explained to the client. Hence, you need to give this 5 important stakeholders. Thoughts and feelings are interconnected. If you have a good thoughts, you will have a good feeling. If you have a positive thoughts, you have a positive feelings. And with these feelings, the physical sensations are related. At the same time, your behavior is interconnected. That means all 4 stakeholders are interconnected. The fifth important character is environment. That is the stakeholder. Environment is an event. Event triggers the thoughts and feelings, and because of this thoughts and feelings, the individual will also have physical sensation and behavior. These need to be explained to the client. And if you're able to explain the client and he's able to understand, the CBT becomes very easy. And you also need to explain each of the stakeholders are interconnected. They influence each other. And CBT is very essential only once the client has understood above all these stakeholders. To give an example, here is a chart: situation, thoughts, feeling, behavior, and physical symptoms. One of the event is preparing for science exam. That is the event. Now the person has a problem. He believes that he cannot pass science exam because science is very difficult and he will not be able to pass. And he has a feelings, sadness, frustration. And because of that, he will not engage in studying science. He will have headache, he will have loss of concentration, and his behavior will be engaging in internet, and he will be playing in computer or maybe watching certain internet materials. And because of this, he will fail in the exam. And once he is failed, his thoughts are confirmed, telling that science is very difficult and I will not be able to pass. This becomes a vicious cycle. This need to be explained to the client. Once the client understands this, the cognitive behavioral therapy becomes very easy. The fifth important tip: emotions are the royal road for cognitions. I have not said this, Beck has said this. That means whenever there is a catastrophic emotions, that means emotions are triggered, that means there is a strong cognitions behind these emotions. You need to search for this cognition, whether this cognition or thoughts are relevant, irrelevant, rational, irrational, need to be assessed. That means you have to remember emotions are the royal road for cognitions. And using that formula, you have to apply CAB model. What is this CAB model? Whenever there is a catastrophic feelings or reaction, look for the trigger, that is antecedent. Why this emotional trigger was there or catastrophic reaction was there, and look for the antecedent, what was the event, and look for the belief the client has. And looking for the belief will give you a thought. What is that thought? Whether it is a rational or irrational. That is called as ABC analysis. However, in CBT is slightly modified. So whenever you want to find a thought which is a cognitive distortion, automatic negative thought, or a core belief, look for the emotions, that is catastrophic emotions, and look for the antecedent, what was the event, and what was the interpretation of the event, that is the belief. If you're able to find that, ABC analysis becomes very easy. And as a therapist, you need to know this CAB model. Moving to the seventh important tip, that is cognitive triad, also called as Beck triad. And this was given by Aaron Beck in 1967. Aaron Beck is an American psychiatrist, and he changed the way the psychotherapy is done in this century. And he is one of the renowned cognitive behavioral therapists who coined this cognitive triad. The cognitive triad is a core belief of yourself, about the others and the world, and the belief of the future. Let's understand in depth. Beck's cognitive triad says, if a person is depressed, he will have negative view about the world, negative view about the self, and negative view about the future. This will lead to a vicious cycle, and that fellow or the person will go into depression. The eighth important tip, automatic negative thoughts. These are also called as ants. Automatic thoughts are the one that pop into our head in response to any trigger, stress, or event. Automatic negative thoughts are easily accessible by the client, and it is easy to assess. Ant, that is automatic negative thoughts, trigger whenever there is a fight, flight, or freeze response. That is, ant comes whenever there is a stress. That means automatic negative thoughts appears to be very good for protecting the animal, that is, for a stress response. Imagine automatic negative thoughts are flooded and they are continuously present. That means there is a chronic stress which is harmful to the individual and also to the brain. So you have to understand this automatic negative thoughts or negative ideas about themselves, the world, and the future causes depression or else maybe causing anxiety or various other psychopathology. The ninth important, cognitive distortions or cognitive errors. Here, one need to understand cognitive errors or distortions are error in logical thinking. That is, they are irrational in nature. There are various cognitive errors or distortions. The commonest are here: selective abstraction, minimization, personalization, arbitrary inference, magnification, and overgeneralization. The cognitive distortions are there for everyone, but however, if it comes in the way of day to day functioning or else social functioning, that needs to be corrected. And these distortions, if they come repeatedly or a theme is repeated many times in an individual, that means it needs to be corrected by cognitive restructuring. Now, moving to the 10th important tip, that is schemas. A schema is a cognitive framework or a concept that helps to organize and interpret the information. As an animal, we get thousands of inputs every second. Now the animal need to focus on the important stimuli. The schemas will help us as a shortcut to interpret the stimuli from the environment, whether the environment is harmful, whether the environment can be easily interacted or not. That means schemas are very essential for us. Although Aaron Beck clearly said in 1967, a schema is a structure for screening, coding, and evaluating the stimuli that impinge on the organism. That is the first time he defined schemas. Later, he also said that in 1979, cognitive schemas are stable cognitive pattern in an individual based upon the past experiences. Later, he also modified specific rules that govern information processing and behavior. So this is how the Beck evolved the schemas. And you need to understand schemas are a set pattern of thinking. Moving to the 11th important tip, Socratic questioning. This is a very important skill you need to learn, Socratic questioning. Socrates, the early Greek philosopher, teacher, believed that disciplined practice of thoughtful questioning enabled the student to examine ideas logically and to determine the validity of those ideas. The Socrates was very clear. He clearly said that usually the person who is able to come to logical conclusion by own thinking, that means he is able to believe that. Usually, the universal statement will be the response to any Socratic questioning. If you ask, how is your life? A patient who is depressed will say, my life is in hell. Why you ask him, my friends doesn't like me. And why do you think so? He may say, no one gives me importance. Now, these general statements need to be further questioned to get a ultimate core belief. That means you need to break these general statements into a specific cognitive distortions or else schemas or else automatic negative thoughts. Once you are able to do that, that means Socratic questioning is going in a right direction. Here in Socratic questioning, the technique the therapist professes that he is ignorant of the topic and he needs to engage the client in a dialogue, and then the dialogue will give him a logical conclusion. And remember, Socratic questioning is based on a principle: people trust if they arrive at the conclusion by themselves. By just listening or suggestion, it will not be a very important learning principle. That means Socratic questioning is a guided discovery of their own cognitive distortions, belief, and automatic negative thoughts. Socratic questioning will help the person to uncover their cognitive dysfunction. And it helps the people to arrive at the conclusion or else to alternative by questioning their belief system. And during this Socratic questioning, do not debate, avoid confrontation aggressively, and do not give ready-made answers or else suggestion, because that will not help them in learning. And you have to remember, in this CBT, learning is very essential, and at the same time, you need to teach them how to unlearn and relearn. These three important principles you should understand: learning, unlearning, and relearning. This is what is about CBT. The learning is basically curiosity, and unlearning is knowing that I am wrong and accepting that I am wrong and unlearning the belief what they have learned. At the same time, relearn the newer, important logical thinking. So, this process, if you are able to teach them through Socratic questioning, that plays a very crucial role. Moving to the 12th important tip, that is thought diary or journaling. I would rather say journaling. Whenever you say a thought diary, many of our patients or clients says, "Sir, I don't write thought diary. I don't write this diary. I don't have this habit." Instead of that, you have to say journaling your thoughts. And you have to teach them what to write in this diary. And journaling is essential for documentation and evidence of micrograin. That you need to focus and you have to tell them this thought diary is very essential for improvement, documentation of improvement, and also it will be helpful in the long term. And this is how the thought diary has to be documented in their diary. And we will discuss each one of them now. The first column is time, the second one is event. What are those events that need to be documented? Whenever the client has emotional catastrophic reaction, those events need to be documented. Initially, it can be started as a routine manner of 3 to 4 times a day. Over a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, once the patient learns how to document that, now you have to focus on those events where the client has catastrophic emotional reaction. And that event need to be documented. Once the event is documented, ask what are the thoughts which happened during that event. That means thoughts which were running in his head when this event occurred. And rate the feelings. Here the rating the feeling is 0 is neutral and -10 is negative feelings such as sadness, frustration, anger, jealousy. Those kinds of feelings need to be documented. And +10 is in a positive direction. And the fourth important is sensation. Did he had any physical sensation like palpitation, sweating, tremor, headache, body ache, or else body shaking? Those sensation needs to be documented. And finally, the behavior. What was his behavior? Did he shout at people? Did he become physically violent? Those behaviors need to be documented. This thought diary need to be taught to the client. And this has to be documented on every day basis and they need to bring their diary during the sessions. 13th, cognitive restructuring. This is a skill which need to be learnt. And this is through Socratic questioning, at the same time using various techniques. The techniques can be maybe diagrams, bar charts, pie charts. These need to be used. Here in cognitive restructuring, by looking at the diary and analyzing their thoughts, their beliefs, their feelings, automatic negative thoughts, maybe distortions, those needs to be analyzed and you need to ask evidence for their belief, evidence against their belief, and also alternative explanation. If you are able to do that, the clients will start learning, yes, many of my thoughts which causing harm to me do not have any rational basis. They are irrational thoughts, maybe cognitive distortions, core beliefs, or automatic negative thoughts. This is how cognitive restructuring has to be done. You need to be very careful. Don't be aggressive in cognitive restructuring. You need to ask very tactfully, can you provide evidence for this? Are there any evidence against your belief? Are there any alternatives? Now and here and there, you can give some suggestion, but majority of the time, the client needs to identify their own thoughts, alternative thoughts, evidence against their thoughts. That is very essential. Moving to the 14th, psychoeducation. When you start your cognitive behavioral therapy, you need to do psychoeducation about their illness, the outcome, the need for medication, and how the treatment process occurs. At the same time, the role of therapist, the role of the client needs to be explained. Without good psychoeducation, CBT is very difficult to progress. Coming to the 15th, you need to bring in this concept. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a training program, especially in India. In India, the client believes that I attend the therapy session, and the therapist will do rest of the things. I have paid my money. It is the duty of the therapist make me symptom free. But in CBT, it is a collaborative work. and collaborative work is difficult to give the concept in India, especially in developing countries. In such a scenario, you need to come up with this a important phenomena called as training program. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a weekly one session therapist guided training program. Once you learnt the training program in this session, you need to go back home and practice it. If you practice more, that means you'll be symptom free. If you don't practice, there is no improvement. You can give an analogy of telling that it's similar to computer training program, maybe a software which you want to learn, especially like Microsoft Office. It may be 1 hour session, weekly once or twice. After going back home, you need to practice. The more you practice, you become mastery over the software skills. Here also in CBT, that training program needs to be brought in. Once you train them and you teach them, telling that these are the skills you need to learn. Once you learn those skills, you will be able to solve your own problem. That is what is all about CBT. And this training program is an essential component. This training program will put the responsibility on the client. At the same time, homework assignment. Third, the patient has his own apprehension. Once the therapy stops, what will happen to me? You have to tell them. This is the training program. You have learned the skill. Use that skill and you can come for booster sessions. So training program is a very important model which can be told to our client, especially in developing countries like India, Pakistan, or any other developing countries. Coming to the 16th, exposure and response prevention. Here it is a behavioral therapy, especially in OCD, social phobia, agoraphobia, or any feared object. The patient needs to expose himself and avoid the response. So exposing needs a good psychoeducation and he needs to understand about the habituation, and the patient should be ready for exposure and response prevention. Once the patient is able to understand this, he need to undergo exposure. Either it may be in reality, that is in vivo or in vitro. Imagination based exposure also can be done, especially when the patient's anxiety is too much. And sometimes you may also do audio exposure or else script exposure, photo exposures. Maybe these can be done by graded exposure. And you need to be very, very innovative. Patient need to acknowledge and he should be ready to expose himself for the fearful cues. Coming to the 17th, behavioral activation. Behavioral activation is also a behavioral therapy where you will do activity scheduling. You will ask the patients to do certain activities which may be their hobbies or pleasurable activities, and you need to give appropriate reinforcement so that the behavioral activation starts. The behavioral activation starts by breaking the vicious cycles of thoughts, emotions, physical sensation, and behavior. Through behavior modification, you are trying to bring the changes in their thoughts. That is what the principle here. Moving to the 18th, focusing on microgains. Here in CBT, the gains will be very micro. That means you have done a CBT session, maybe 5 or 10 session. Don't expect that the patient will be completely all right. No, the patient will be able to get the improvement in certain 1 or 2 symptoms. And those symptoms, you can see the microgains. So you need to provide appropriate reinforcement for the microgains, and realistic expectations should be done. And even you need to tell the patient that they need to have expectation with related to microgains and be realistic in their expectation, not only to the client, to the client's family members also. What is realistic expectation? Here, if you look at this, as the therapy progresses in weeks, improvement on the y-axis, you can see as a robo, you can see as the therapy progresses, the improvement is a straight single line. That doesn't happen in realistic. In reality, the patient will do extremely well on the first few sessions, and suddenly there will be a dip. Again, there will be sudden improvement. So these ups and downs are very common in therapy, and you need to understand as a therapist. That means you also need to have a realistic expectation. Certain days, the client will do extremely well. You will be happy, the client will be happy. And the second or third session, the client will be completely down and there will be no improvement, and the patient will be criticizing the therapy. And you need to remember that the realistic expectation is very essential. Coming to the 20th important point, role of family, especially role of family members in India and developing countries plays a crucial role. They play a role in maintenance of symptoms and even critical comments or expressed emotion by the family member may come in the way of CBT. At the same time, they help the client to avoid anxiety provoking situation by modifying daily activities. Hence, you need to involve family members in some of the sessions to psychoeducate them and to help the patient to overcome his symptoms. And sometimes in India, they play as a co-therapist for monitoring the CBT at home, because you do therapy weekly one session, maybe 1 to 2 hours maximum. Remaining 23 hours, the family members will be reminding them, will be helping them to do homework assignments. The important 21st tip: weaning and termination. In cognitive behavioral therapy, weaning and termination is very essential. You need to prepare the client, because majority of the clients will have apprehension. Once the therapy stops, I will get my symptoms back. What will happen to me? These are the apprehension. Hence, this weaning and termination should be planned. And also, this concept of CBT as a training program plays a very crucial role here. You have to tell them you have learned the CBT skills through training program over a period of 18 to 20 sessions. Now we will start the weaning of the sessions. Initially, the sessions may be weekly ones, later monthly ones, or else 3 months once. And slowly you will see the termination occurs. That is the way you have to teach them, so that the client understands I have learned the skill. I'll use the skill to overcome all other symptoms. And in CBT sessions, over a period of 20 to 30 sessions, you will be able to address only 5 to 6 symptoms. Rest of the symptoms, the client should learn the skills and counter their symptoms. That means to fight against their symptoms. That is very essential, weaning and termination. At the same time, you also need to tell them there is booster sessions. The booster sessions are very essential to consolidate the gains. There may be here and there lapses. Before the relapse occurs, booster sessions plays a very crucial role in consolidating the gains of the therapy sessions. And finally, 23rd, homework compliance. You need to tell the client the compliance to homework is the only factor which has been found to be very helpful in the outcome factor as a good indicator for good outcome in cognitive behavioral therapy. The studies have clearly said that if the client has good compliance to cognitive behavioral therapy and good homework assignment, that means definitely will improve. If he has a poor compliance to homework, that means the possibility of him improving is very bleak. Coming to the 24th, self-statements. These are very essential and helpful if the patient is very depressed, or else he gets a lot of automatic negative thoughts. Then writing these statements in the places where he spends most of the time plays a very crucial role, and these may help in counteracting his negative thoughts. Coming to the 25th, this is the last important tip. You need, as a therapist, you need to understand thoughts are not facts. At the same time, feelings are not facts. The events are interpreted based upon the interpretation of the perceiver. The Burns has clearly said that you feel the way you think. Hence, just a thought is there in your mind doesn't mean that is the fact. You are feeling sad doesn't mean it's a fact. Each fact needs to be examined logically, and then interpretation has to be done. Otherwise, you will be suffering. That needs to be told to the client. So, this is how you have to progress in cognitive behavioral therapy. You need to identify the core beliefs. Before you identify the core beliefs, you need to find cognitive schemas, cognitive distortions, and automatic negative thoughts. And automatic negative thoughts are easily accessible. And move towards the cognitive distortions, schemas, and core belief. And you need to do cognitive restructuring. And you need to be tactful in using Socratic questioning and asking for evidence against and for his belief. At the same time, alternative explanation should be asked. If you have a good rapport, you'll be able to guide the patient through this Socratic questioning. And once you are successful, you'll understand all these 25 skills play a major role in cognitive behavioral therapy. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.